Welcome back to some new r/PettyRevenge stories. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called The Team Swerve. I was an editor at a company that produced educational materials for finance-related designations, but the leaders knew nothing about editing. They thought it was basically hitting spell check and walking away. My boss asked us what we did several times, and then he forgot each time. To make it worse, because they didn't have a great idea of what editors do, they had us do tasks not typically in an editor's job description. Graphic designing, coding ebooks, project management. At one point, a supervisor even asked me to look into creating contracts for something, despite me not having any experience in legal matters. On top of that, toward the end, they wanted us to justify our roles by taking on even more tasks. They paid us not even the average wage for one of the many roles we filled, and they treated us like we were insignificant. We kept telling them we needed more staff, and they refused. By the end, even if they had hired more people, it wouldn't have mattered, because they'd overloaded us so much, we wouldn't even have the time to train them. So finally, me and a coworker quit within a short time of each other. I found out from one of the remaining team members that one of the people who had been absolutely certain we were superfluous couldn't figure out how to do a key task that I used to perform. He was a digital designer, but he couldn't edit an EPUB. I did leave detailed instructions and links to resources, but he couldn't do it. When another team member retired, the company axed the rest, and a few weeks later, the company wanted to know if I wanted to freelance with them, because they had no one left who knew how to edit and produce a specific textbook. Rejecting their offer was very satisfying. The next story is called Waiting for the Doctor. This happened in a developing country's public hospital. It's full and the workload is high. I'm a female doctor. I was attending to stable patients, the ones who just drop in for a quick review and refill prescriptions. This section was mainly looked after by female health extension officers. I was just assisting that morning. As soon as I finish with a client, the next walks in. There's a long line of people waiting their turn. The next client walks in, takes one look at me and says, "I'll wait for a doctor to attend to me." Before I could respond, they walked out. The subsequent client does the same thing. Eventually, all clients are seen, except for the two who are still waiting for a doctor to serve them. Before I leave for a different section, a nurse approaches and asks about the two. I say they want to be seen by a doctor. She smiles at me and turns to the clients and tells them they just missed the doctor. They had to wait for another hour. The third story is called Wouldn't Be Polite. I threw out my back at work and was prescribed some muscle relaxants, which I can take if I'm driving. Due to the fact that it's a back injury, I'm able to go assist coworkers, deliver stock, and other stuff outside the usual back injury stuff, like lifting too much, using ladders, twisting, or bending. By the time I got home, I took one of the relaxants and passed out in front of the TV. About an hour later, I was woken up by some loud guy arguing on his phone right outside my apartment, which is technically the second floor, but very close to ground level. Since I was asleep, I was really not wanting to move. If I slow down, my back stiffens up and moving around can hurt. I yelled, "Can you please move your conversation a few feet in any direction?" The guy stopped talking, then started back up. I think maybe he didn't quite hear me, or couldn't tell I was talking to him, since I was nowhere near the patio door he was in front of. I waited for a break on his side of the conversation, repeated the same question, and got the same pause, mutter, and continued conversation. So I got up, walked to the patio door, looked down at him and asked again, "Excuse me, can you please move anywhere else to have that conversation? I'm trying to sleep." I probably looked and sounded a little cranky, but I didn't use any rude language or make threats or throw boiling oil on him. He immediately goes full aggressive mode, says it's public property and I can screw off. I immediately said okay, that's fine, give me a second, I get you to move. This made him get even more aggressive and loud. Instead of doing what he expected and answering immature, unnecessary anger with more immature anger on my side, I went to my storage closet. I grabbed my air compressor with a big grin on my face. I hobbled back out on the balcony, flicked on the compressor and flipped him off. The next story is called Get a Real Job. Throughout college, I worked at a coffee shop across from my real estate office. Most realtors were either kind or indifferent towards me. There was, however, one who stood out from the rest. He must have had a chip on his shoulder. He was born into a famous family in our city and has been trying to make it as a big-name realtor. He always acted as such, wouldn't look at me when ordering, rarely said anything to me besides his order. In 2 years, I don't believe he ever said please or thank you. Perhaps worst of all, he assumed every employee was uneducated and unintelligent. I had his order memorized within 2 weeks. I'd often have his drink ready for him when I knew he'd be there. Every time he'd insist, "My order is too complicated. This must be incorrect. Make it how I ordered." As if I hadn't made it 229 times already. I'd simply pull it behind the counter, make a separate drink for the drive-thru, and then hand him back the one he insisted was wrong. He'd also force an "oh, wow" reaction when removing the lid to check for no foam. There were unsolicited comments directed towards my coworkers about getting real jobs, considering college, learning something useful. He never took the time to learn that 2 baristas had master's degrees, 1 had a PhD, and many had real jobs on the side. I'm now a nurse practitioner. I live in a wonderful home I'm selling to be closer to family. I called up the realtor and asked him to meet with me. He, unsurprisingly, didn't recognize me. I brought up the old barista gig and he was shocked, to the point of asking if I'd inherited my home. Apparently, he hasn't changed at all. He likely spent 5+ hours communicating with me and setting up a contract. I gladly went with another realtor who always treated me and my coworkers with respect. The last story is called A Physical Copy. I work for our National Health Service in the UK, which allows you to get discounts in a lot of retail areas. A few months ago, I was at the self-service checkout in the supermarket. The very grumpy attendant came over to verify my age. I bought some medicine, and I asked her while she was there if she could please verify my NHS discount. She asked to see my ID badge, and I explained that I don't have the physical badge as I work in pediatrics. My badge is also described to get in and out of all the locked areas in the hospital. If I were to drop it, some stranger could have access to basically anywhere. I showed her a photograph of my badge, gave her my blue light card and my driver's license. But how do I know it's real? I think this would be a lot of effort to fake all of that for a 10% discount on groceries. I explained that I never had an issue before, but understood she wanted to check. So I pulled out my work phone, with NHS Asset stamped on the back, log into my NHS email, and show her my profile, which has my name, email, and picture. She just looks at me and says, "I'm going to need a physical copy." I'm just like, okay, forget it. It's about a £3 discount. I paid for my shopping and she came over to usher me off. I was sorting the packaging out when I noticed that no receipt was issued from the machine. I asked her if I needed to press anything, and she said that it ran out of paper, and she doesn't have any receipt paper at her station, or the key to unlock the machine to change it. Suddenly, the light bulb goes off. I'm irritated anyway, and not in a rush, so I just turned to her deadpan and said, "I'm going to need a physical copy." This resulted in the manager coming over, taking that machine out of action, having to recover my shopping transaction on another machine, and chewing her out for not having the keys. I smiled and waved at her on my way out, as I put my receipt in the bin. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.